Alrighty guys, welcome back into another One Piece video. This time we have the post-game show for chapter 1158. Just in case this is your first time tuning into one of these videos, how this works is that I like to go through the comment section of the previous spoiler video to just see what everybody's talking about. What's the hot goss? What are the theories? What's everybody yapping about? I'm here to find out, and you guys are gonna join me on this adventure. Without further ado, let's just hop right into it. Let me just scoot over. Top comment is about me. Wow. I just knew Sai was gonna glaze Moria's reveal up, but I did not think it was gonna take up half of the video. Cut me some slack, right? Moria, for me, has been always one of my top 10 favorite characters in One Piece. That might sound blasphemous considering all the characters we have, but he really is up there for me. Just to give you guys some lore on why I like Moria so much, it's because his arc is what sold One Piece to me, right? I've always been reading One Piece, reading it through Shonen Jump alongside Naruto and Bleach, whatever else was there. I think Toriko was still going on at the time. And One Piece was always one of those mangas that I just kind of read in the background, right? I loved One Piece, but I didn't love One Piece enough to get super invested until the ending of Enies Lobby. Luffy versus Rob Lucci, iconic fight. That right there got me on the One Piece hype train. And then guess what? The next arc, Thriller Bark, is what sold me. This arc is what made me truly fall in love with One Piece. Gecko Moria, Thriller Bark, Dr. Hogback, Sindri, Absalom. I love these goobers. Perona, dude, Perona. So yes, when Moria gets glazed in this chapter, when he gets a crazy reveal, yeah, I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna eat that up. You know, I truly do think the Moria plot point is just top tier. I mean, Kozuki Moria, dude. Like, how can we not glaze the hell out of that? And plus, this right here, it recontextualizes so much. So yeah, forgive me for ranting and glazing Moria for all that time. Hopefully, we don't get a lot of Moria comments today, so we don't have to stay on that train, but I think it was well-deserved, right? I think it's really well-deserved, and we don't know what he's doing today, man, right? Moria escaped Hachinosu successfully with Perona. When is this guy gonna show up next? And what will he look like? Will Moria ever pick up the sword again? Dude. If this guy knows Kozuki-styled attacks, it's gonna be like the second coming of Odin. Oh my god. Imagine if he gets Odin's corpse even. Ooh, that would be scary. This one says, the real shocker is that Shanks' mother turns out to be from the Uzumaki clan. Okay, because of the red hair. It looks like we're getting One Piece x Naruto crossover. I don't think that's the case, but of course I know you're joking. But we do have to keep in mind that Oda and Kishimoto are really good friends, and whenever plot points get pretty close to one another, they do usually chatter about it. So I think it would be kind of cool if it was like an Uzumaki clan type thing. Like, the red hair is very special. This one says, the narrator saying the words "they would not meet again" gives me mural vibes. Yeah, I get that. It gives us mural vibes, but they will meet again too, right? The narrator went on and said they will meet during that incident. So right now I'm just kind of curious to see what that incident really is. I do, you know, the logical side of me, I lean towards God Valley being that incident, but the crazy theorist skeptical side of me is saying, hey, Sai, what if Rock shows up during the day of Harold's death? You know, he pulls a little bit of a Kurozumi Momonosuke switch, like maybe Harold is fighting somebody, and then he turns around and there's rocks and he's like, what? And then that's how King Harold dies? I don't know. This is a really ominous vibe. And yeah, mural vibes all the way. Can't forget that Whitebeard sees, quote, his face when talking to Shanks. Okay, so this is my bad. So in the full spoiler video, I'll own up to my mistake. You know, sometimes I'm not like the arbiter of justice. I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, but in the spoiler video, I talked about how Shanks and Shamrock could be Garling's kid, and that is what I believe in. But I also brought up a theory that maybe Shanks and Shamrock are adopted by Garling, or maybe Garling takes them up after God Valley, and I got a lot of pushback on that one. I'll admit, right? Like I said, it was just a theory. I wasn't trying to sell it too hard, but yeah, this right here is a nail in the coffin. Whitebeard does say that he sees his face when talking to Shanks, which of course is in reference to Garling. And of course, after reading the chapter now, right, because I was doing all this without seeing the actual chapter, I do see it. I do see Shanks and Shamrock being Garling's actual sons. But now that we have that, it goes back to why I started theorizing in the first place. Why is Garling's girl at God Valley? Is she a celestial dragon? Is she just a peasant, a commoner? Why didn't Garling simply kidnap her? We've seen celestial dragons do that in the past. They want a woman and they just take her back home forcefully, right? So I think that was my holdup. Just why is she so special? Is Garling not like that? Maybe Garling's the one guy that, you know, treats his woman right. Maybe that's it. And that's why I was kind of like wondering about that. Like, why is Garling not here? Why is she not up in the Holy Land? And also, if she does genuinely live here, I mean, hell, Garling's about to massacre her people, which, you know, how good of a dad is he? I don't know. The next comment says, dude, Rox keeps looking more and more like the good guy of the story back in the day, and Roger was like Luffy. Just some wacko going on adventures, yeah. I mean, this chapter really did make me feel bad for Rox, especially when you look at the fight. My god, half the time, Rox is just trying to reason with Harold. Rox is over here throwing his hands on his head. He's over here attacking him, saying, you rat! Like, please just wake up. They just want to use you as weapons, which technically that's the same thing Rox wants to do, but at least Rox likes Harold and he likes Elbaf, so it might be a little bit different. But yeah, Rox, I'm liking him more and more as the chapters go on. And I don't think he's still a good guy. I think we're just seeing the best sides of him. But you gotta admit, if you are Rox's friend, he will definitely treat you right. And that right there is something that I find really respectable. You know, it goes back to when Rox kicked Kaido, saying, hey, Kaido, don't you dare talk about me betraying Harold ever again. And it's like, yeah, like Rox, he's that guy, man. He's that guy. And, you know, maybe that explains why Blackbeard is a little bit more extreme. Maybe Blackbeard knows that his dad valued friendship a little bit too much, and Blackbeard doesn't want to make the same mistakes. I don't know. I can't wait to see Blackbeard's perspective on all of this. Like, does he think that his dad is a fool? Does he not want to make the same mistakes as his dad? Does he want to get revenge for his dad even? There's a lot of things I'm curious about. This one says, Kozuki Moria. That paints a whole different picture on him fighting Kaido. Yes, it does. I've seen people saying it, right? We still do not know Moria's intentions. Did he really want to defend his village? Or was he just there to fight Kaido? Personally, I want to believe that Moria cares about Wano, right? I mean, he went to the hometown where he was raised to fight him, right? That's where the battle took place. It took place in Ringo. So I like to believe that Moria was good at that time, right? You know, tragedy changes people. Kind of like Squard, right? Squard was a rambunctious pirate, and then Roger killed all of his crew, and then Squard changed. I think Moria is the same way. I mean, hell, we have examples that Moria is the same way, right? Because after Kaido killed Moria's crew, that is when Moria turned to zombie making. That's when he got Dr. Hog back, because he didn't want his crew to die anymore. So instead, he opted in for an undying crew of zombies. So yeah, if you were to tell me that Moria was very different when he fought Kaido, I'd believe you. You know, I do think he really was a pirate of justice back in the day. And man, oh man, I said it in the video, I'll say it again. If only Odin joined Moria, brother, Moria and Odin versus Kaido, they could have won. They really could have won. I'm not even joking when I say that. They probably could have won. Granted, we don't know how far Moria pushed Kaido, but if Moria was that guy, you know, 2 Kozukis versus him, plus Moria's crew. Moria had a whole ass pirate crew there. Done. They fight the fodder. Moria and Odin team up against Kaido. Who knows? Who knows what would have happened? Loki, getting closer to Ida, is going to start up the Mosa theories again, isn't it? Personally, I feel like this is an ominous sign and probably means that Ida doesn't make it, because Oda would definitely give Loki a friend only to rip them away from him. Yeah, you know, I've never really been super big on the Ida is Mosa theories, mainly because it wouldn't make sense why Ida would go under a different name like Mosa. So yeah, I've never been high on them, but I think it will start up the theories yet again. But like you, I think this is very ominous. There's no way Ida makes it out of this. Like, maybe Ida gets kidnapped by the world government. Maybe somebody comes to kill her. Maybe Harold sacrifices her. I don't know, man. But either way, I just do not see Ida making it out of this A-okay. And it is odd that current day here in Elbaf, nobody's mentioned Ida. Hyruden hasn't mentioned her. Loki hasn't mentioned her. I just think Ida's not here anymore. I think she does not exist within this corporeal dimension. So next comment, I actually like this one already. Let me see see here? I have to say, I don't see the vision for adopted Shanks and Shamrock theory. The fact that as a young man, he looked identical to them, at least in his face, I cannot imagine that he isn't directly their father, especially with the Son of Garling text confirmation we got. That said, the cover story has actually paid off massively considering how long it dragged on for. Yeah, like I said, I made a mistake there. It was just a random theory that popped in my mind while I was recording that video. My videos aren't scripted, so I just really say what pops up in my head. And after this video, I even got lambasted by my wife because she sits right here whenever I film. And she was like, huh, why'd you bring that up? And I was like, oh, okay. Well, nobody's on my side on this one, damn it. Which is totally fine. But yeah, like I said, I do see it now. I do see the connection there. And as far as the cover page story goes, yeah, 40 weeks for the Moria reveal, I think that's perfect. And you gotta keep in mind, you know, at the end of these cover page journeys is when we get all the reveals. So if Oda keeps on going with Yamato's adventure, we could get crazier and crazier things, right? Wano is a hotbed for war and plundering. Pluton, poneglyphs, the borders, like, brother, there's no way we're not going to get another party showing up in Yamato's cover page journey. So next comment, they say, insane how Moria is playing into the story, being a hero of Wano and possibly owning God Valley as a ship. Yeah, this is an older theory, right? The theory that God Valley is indeed Thriller Bark. I'm still not too sure how I feel about that one, necessarily. Just because the shape of Thriller Bark doesn't exactly match God Valley. And same with the architecture, but it's a fine theory, all right? We do have to somehow explain how Moria has so many of Rox's crew as his zombies. So the Moria relevancy does not stop here. Moria's just gonna keep on getting more and more stocks as time goes on. I could definitely see Roger finding the chest, thinking he won a grandiose prize, only find out it's a baby in the treasure chest, and he either laughs from excitement or he does the iconic One Piece disgust face. I think we actually have a panel of this. I believe Oda in Volume 4 Billion drew up what this would look like. Of course, it was a rough sketch, so we don't exactly see Roger's face, but I'm pretty sure he's just really shocked. He's like, huh? What? Baby Shanks? So yeah, I do wonder, like, maybe he sees this as a blessing, which is kind of funny, right? Roger decides to keep the baby. Roger doesn't even want Gloriosa on the crew because she'd be too much of a hassle to deal with, but he gladly accepted a newborn child. Kind of wild when you think about it, brother, kind of wild. Zoro tends to have a relationship to characters who are from Wano. If Perona, oh, here we go. If Perona was adopted by Moria, who has connections to Wano, it's possible that is where she's from. I've seen people point out Perona has similar eyes to Otoko, and they both have pink hair. Then, of course, there's the fact that her powers are negative and make people upset, whereas the people in Wano are suffering from smiles, which forces them to laugh. Would be interesting to see how her negative hollow interacts with smile victims. Oh, you cooked with that one, man. So I talked about this before. Perona being from a Wano family, I love it. Personally, I really love that idea. Pretty much because of what you said here. You know, Otoko, pink hair, bug eyes. Yeah, I think that's a slam dunk, especially since Perona was from the West Blue, just like Moria. And Moria, despite being from the West Blue, is a Kozuki. Zoro, despite being from the West Blue, is a Shimotsuki. So yeah, Perona being from the same family as Toko, I think makes sense, and it would be really cool for Zoro too. Like you said, Zoro a Shimotsuki, Perona a ex-family member. Yeah, I think that's fun, and it could explain their fun dynamics as well, because they do have a kind of brother-sister relationship going on. So yeah, throw that in. I think this is a massive W, but where you really got me was right here, this last part. Would be interesting to see how her negative hollows interact with smile victims. Brother. Back when we were in Wano, I thought it was a massive Chopper L. Chopper and his medicinal skills, I've never been like super impressed by them. That's like a personal thing, right? I've never really cared too much for the medicine side of One Piece. And when I wanted Chopper to show out the most was here in Wano with the smile fruits. I was like, okay, maybe Chopper fixes this and then hooray, you know, I really care about the smile victims. I feel bad for them. Oda in an SBS dropped that Chopper could not cure these guys yet. You know, he put yet, right? So Chopper one day will be able to cure smile. Definitely. But as of right now, he can't. And I was like, damn it, dude. Like, that really sucks, you know? Of course, Wano is liberated. That's a massive W for the citizens. But, you know, you have people here still struggling with the smile effects. Maybe this is what Oda's been planning. this entire time. I mean, hell, he's been planning Moria for a long time, right? The name Gecko flipped backwards is literally Kozuki. So you can't say that Oda has not been planning that. Maybe we do go with this. Maybe the reason why he didn't let Chopper actually cure these guys is because Perona is with Moria. Moria has no home right now. Personally, I think he'll go to Cross Guild, but if he doesn't go to Cross Guild, the next best option is to go home. You know, maybe he goes home to Wano, and that's when he sees Ibisu Town, and he sees the people with the smile devil fruits, and then Perona does something because Perona's with him. That's good. I really like this theory. Maybe they do counteract each other. You hit them with the negative hollows, and it balances out. Yeah, no, I love this theory a lot. I think you absolutely cooked with this last part. Next comment says, we all used to think that had fate swung the other way in Kaido and Moria's battle, we'd have just traded one Yonko depot for another, but that's not the case. If Moria won, he'd have put an early end to Orochi's tyranny and restored peace. Momo, Kinemon, and the others would have likely been time jumped into a peaceful Wano-governed Shogun Kozuki Moria. Can you even imagine that? I can't. Oh man, maybe in my dreams I can. Like, I mean, you're not wrong either, right? Of course, like I said, we do not exactly know what Moria was like back then, but I do think he was very different. I do think he was a nice guy, especially, or at least to the Wano citizens. So maybe we would have had a nice Kozuki Moria island here, and we'd have no zombies, we'd have a peaceful place, no weapons. Hell, maybe Moria even breaks down the walls of Wano, man. I don't know. I mean, hell, I think he would actually. Okay, because you gotta think about the timeline, right? When Moria fought Kaido, that was before the Scabbards time jumped. So they would have never time jumped at all. They would have helped Moria, and if Odin was there too, Odin would have helped Moria. And keep in mind, at the time, Odin did not want to become Shogun. He never really showed much interest in becoming Shogun, so he really would have passed it on to Moria. The one thing Odin wanted was to break down the walls of Wano. Moria and Odin would have done that. Moria would rule, Odin would break down the walls, and it would literally be peaceful. Wow. We'd come to Wano, and there would be no fighting. It would just be all lore. Moria wouldn't even be a warlord. Huh. Who would be a warlord in Moria's place, I wonder? Yeah, this is a what if chapter we need. You know, I talked about what if chapters before. Like, oh, like, what if Ace survived? What if King Harold joined Rocksteady Zebek? I think this is another what if we need. What if Moria and Odin beat Kaido and ruled over Wano? Ashura, Doji, and Izo would still be alive. They would. That is an objective fact. No smile devil fruits either, right? Moria was in Wano 22 years ago. That was before some of the nasty stuff actually happened. You know, yeah, things were nasty back then, but it got nastier after Odin died. Bro, Moria and the 9 Scabbards plus Odin. And Moria's crew, right? We can't undersell Moria's crew despite us not knowing any of them except for Absalom and Perona, but yeah, crazy stuff, crazy stuff. This comment says, would it make sense if Shamrock gets adopted? Because he said Shanks came to the Holy Land at one point and decided to stay in the lower world, which means Shanks was also supposed to be a Celestial. So that means they are actually Garling's son. That is also true. That is also true. Shanks does have that sway. One thing, I'll reiterate this from the video too. One thing I am curious about outside of the mom stuff is I wonder if Garling or anybody from the Celestials knows that Shanks is the child of destiny that Gabon talked about, right? Do they also have that epithet for Shamrock and Shanks? Or is that one-sided and only the Roger crew called Shanks that? I am curious about that too. Like, maybe that's another reason why they let him in, you know? On top of this, it could be like, hey, Shanks, child of destiny, we can't stop you. You know, like, you do your thing, you find your way, and then one day you'll come back to us. Maybe that's it. This says, I've seen this crazy theory that honestly may be true, but what if Uranus is the God Valley Island and Garling stumbled upon something that confirms this? The mountain of the island is shaped like a railgun, and Oda is crazy enough to do something like this. That's not bad. I do like this theory a lot, because when I read the chapter, my main takeaway with what Garling said about the treasure or the thing he found at God Valley is that it can't be something that Garling could have brought back easily, right? Whatever Garling found there, he had to leave there for 2 years, right? Garling left the treasure there for 2 years. So if it is the island, I think that would make sense because nobody can just take that. And then that would explain why God Valley is currently missing. At first, I thought it was because of Lelucia, like maybe this weapon destroyed the island, but I do like the theory here that the island is the weapon, which would be kind of fitting, right? God Valley becomes God's ship. And you're right, it kind of does look like a railgun. It reminds me of something out of Star Wars even, which I'm not well versed in Star Wars, so I don't know the ship name, but to anybody who does know, drop it down below. This one says, I'm here for the Moria talk. I'm betting that Nasujiro put the hit on Moria simply because he looks like he's from Wano. You're right. I almost forgot to bring that up. Yeah. The government wanted to kill Moria. Doflamingo said that it's because Moria is weak. But now that we know that he's Kozuki Moria, we could say it's because he's Kozuki. You know, we could say that too. I think it would fit if he figured out the Gecko equals Kozuki switch up. I think Moria found ores in Ringo as well, since it has a frozen climate. Since ores is a continent puller and Wano used to be connected to the rest of the world, it's possible that he pulled the continents to hide the ancient weapon. Parentheses, is Ringo the missing eye of Jaya? Moria stocks are going crazy right now, and I hope Oda gives us a chapter with Cross Guild vaguely discussing their past. Crocodile would absolutely want to go for the ancient weapon under Wano. Yap session. Also, I think Garling might have found that woman, but of course, I need to sneak in Mihawk, so I suggest he found Yoru. Okay, him finding Yoru, I feel like he just bring it back. I really believe Yoru, Knight, has insane lore considering its unique design and the fact that it has 16 gemstones. The 16th Knight represents incomplete beauty in Japanese culture, which could signify that the beauty of God Valley is rendered incomplete by its refusal to join the WG. Huh. You know what? It's funny. When I first started reading this, you know, you said Yoru, and like a little kid, I giggled. I was like, okay, Yoru, are you kidding me? But now that I think about it, what if it is Yoru? Okay, let's just play with this for a minute, right? What if Yoru is in the middle of God Valley? Like in between the, you know how like people are saying that God Valley looks like somebody cut it in half? Remember that? Maybe it was cut in half. Maybe there was a completed mountain and right in the middle is Yoru. And this does, funny enough, tie back to early Elbaf, which sounds crazy to say, right? Early Elbaf. Back when Usopp was messing around with Yarul, you know, he tried to pull the sword out of Yarul's head. He slapped it, he laughed at it, and he talked about that sword being like Excalibur. And we know how Usopp's lies are, right? Yes, it's kind of a meme, but time and time again, most of the things that Usopp lies about or jokes about does have some merit to the actual story. The most recent one would be Eastcat, the cat that turned into a lion at the beginning of Elbaf. That was one of Usopp's lies turned truth. So what if there is an Excalibur? And what if it is Yoru? You know, what if it is Yoru in the middle of that valley? And the reason why Garling couldn't bring it back is because it's waiting for the right person to pull it. I don't know. I feel like this sounds so headcanon-y and so fan fiction-ish that I don't believe it, but I do think it's a really fun idea. I think we will get an Excalibur in the series. And before you mentioned this, I initially thought it was going to be Ragnir, the hammer that Loki has. I was like, okay, Ragnir is going to be the Excalibur on Elbaf, right? Because only Loki can wield it. But then eventually, maybe Usopp, you know, tries to do something with it, and that's his Excalibur. But I do like the Yoru connection here. I think that's a lot of fun. And of course, you didn't go for the easy slam dunk, but 16 is also representative of Emu. Because if you break down Emu's name, just like how Luffy's Gomu is 5'6", Emu is 1'6". For 16. So I think that is interesting. Yeah, fun comment. You know, like you said, yap session, but it's a good yap session. It's a good yap session. You know, it's like a theory that'll keep you awake at night. This says, seeing Rux in this way is interesting. He seems more and more different from his son the more we learn. Rock seems to genuinely care and love others, even if he isn't a great guy. Rox feels even more like two sides of the same coin to Luffy. Yeah, he does. And, you know, the whole reason why Blackbeard is very different from his dad could just be because he doesn't want to fail like his dad. You know, maybe he looks back at his dad and he's like, okay, my dad was way too soft. I need to really just lock in and fulfill his ambitions. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying that Rox is very much like Luffy, and I can't unsee it, to be honest. Man, Roger was moving like top dog even in Zebek's Island. Truly the top one old gen. Top dog. I mean, he moves like the top. I wouldn't say he's the top dog, though. When I read this chapter and when I saw the panels, it felt like Zebek and Roger were like equals, right? It feels like they've clashed before, they fought before. It gives me the same vibes as Luffy and Kid. Is that blasphemous? I feel like before Wano, you could say that and nobody would laugh at you. But yeah, it gives me like Luffy and Kid vibes. This one says, if Gecko Moria is fluent in the ancient poneglyph language, then Cross Guild is poised to steal rubbings and go as directly as possible. They will. They 100% will. I mean, Gecko Moria, he should know, more or less, that Zoe has one of the poneglyphs, that Wano has one of them, and then Big Mom, that could just be common knowledge. And here's the thing, bro. But if Kaido and Big Mom are out of the picture, who's stopping these guys? Crocodile, Mihawk, Buggy, Mr. One, you know, a lot of Baroque works, you know, Gecko Moria, Perona. You're not stopping these guys. You know, sorry, Katakuri, but you're getting whooped, right? Like, that's just a thing. And then for Zoe and Wano, that shouldn't be a fight. You know, if they had to fight Yamato, like, let's say for some reason, Wano is hostile. Let's play with the what if. What if Wano is hostile? Cross Guild wins. They do not lose that battle. Like, Yamato is powerful. Akazaya 9, powerful. I'm sorry. Mihawk and all these guys, they're gonna cook them. They're gonna cook them. It's kind of sweet that Blackbeard actually had a loving parent. You're not wrong. You know, Rock seemed really happy. I wonder if Rock survived, how different would Blackbeard be? Blackbeard and his old man, huh? I think Blackbeard would be a lot happier. I'm not gonna lie. Blackbeard would be a lot happier, maybe even a lot stronger, right? Blackbeard is already very powerful, but imagine if he had a mentor like his daddy there. Crazy stuff. Roger, being a menace, just dropping by Rox's island unannounced. Yeah, and he also beat up all the people outside of Shaki's bar as well, right? There's supposed to be no fighting if you want to go to her establishment, but Roger did not care about that whatsoever. And yeah, it's just fun. I love seeing the old gen all together, brother. Seeing Roger, Rox, Roger liking Whitebeard back in the past, etc. Like, it's just all a lot of fun. I think Oda showing Shanks' mom at the end is just a typical red herring. He does, and she's not the incredible discovery that Garling made. It's sort of like when the Gorosei were talking about the devil fruit, that true name was hidden from the annals of history. Then we got a panel of Zunisha at the end of the chapter. Everyone was making theories about Zunisha relating to that fruit. I remember that, right? I do remember this a little bit. This wasn't a big talking point, if I recall correctly, because this is when I started doing YouTube as well. I did it well beforehand, but this is when I came back to One Piece for a little bit. But as far as Zunisha, it does kind of relate though, because Zunisha knows the fruit, right? Zunisha is also going towards Wano, but also the drum beat. The drum beat comes in later though. But yeah, I do agree. Could be a red herring. I do not think the woman, now that I've seen the chapter, I do not think that she is going to be the discovery that he made. And it kind of goes back to the thought train that if she was the discovery, then he should have just brought her. You know, he should have just put her in chains and just yanked her back here. This one says, I wonder if Captain John had Vasco Shot's fruit previously. They're both alcoholics and could be a nice parallel between Rox's crew and the Blackbeard Pirates. I like that. I've seen this theory floating around, and I am very favorable towards it as well. Right, Captain John, Vasco Shot, they both just drink nonstop. Yeah, I think this could be tied to Captain John, and this could explain why Captain John, during Thriller Bark, was so uninspiring. Right? Why Captain John didn't stand out from anybody else? It's because he didn't have his powers. Captain John always fought with his devil fruit. When Moria brought him back to life, he had no devil fruit, so he was kind of just there. I like that. I like that. The Moria reveal could explain why he has a floating island for a ship, seeing how Wano was islands pulled together. Oh, that's not bad. Yeah. He could explain how he did that. Yeah. I like that a lot. And then, you know, going back to the content puller theory with ores, maybe that's another explanation too. Maybe Moria learned it from his lore. If I'm not mistaken, Perona was on Hachinosu during the Save Kobe operation in Egghead. I should have realized at that point that Gecko Moria has a role in the final saga. Also, quote, would not meet again, was featured in the Harley text, and Oda uses it again here. Yeah, Oda's a romantic. You know, Oda's definitely a romantic. I think that is why he likes using this line. And it goes back to, actually, one of my favorite chapters of One Piece, believe it or not. One of my favorite chapters of One Piece was the Noland Calgara one. All right, so I had to pull it up. It's chapter 292, and it's titled To Meet Like the Half Moon Hidden by the Clouds. And that's supposed to be symbolic of Nolan and Calgara meeting and not meeting. So yeah, I definitely think that Oda's going to be bringing this theme back over and over and over here in the final saga. There's definitely going to be like some kind of long-lost lover kind of thing going on here, long-lost friend thing going on. And yeah, I think Harold and Rox is just another prime example of that. I wonder if Moria himself is a zombie somehow, and his original body is something else. Okay. Moria a zombie? I don't think so, because Moria's grown, right? Moria's definitely grown since we last saw him, because we first saw Moria at the Roger execution. He looked normal. We saw him at the Kaido fight in Wano. Looked normal, and then he only started growing and getting bigger and getting fatter when we got to Thriller Bark. So I don't think his body's a zombie. I think he is just himself, and he just looks kind of odd. Since he is from Wano, we could say that he's maybe part Oni, and there's like an off branch of the Kozuki clan that just has weird DNA. Maybe that's why they left. They're like, hey, we don't feel normal in Wano. Let's go to the West Blue instead, which would be kind of crazy. Kaido beat Moria so badly, he had to write his surname backwards. That's tough. Yeah, that's tough. From how Roger and Rocks act like rivals to the point he lets Roger pirates come, even though they should be enemies, I'm starting to feel like Garp and Roger didn't kill him. Something else happened, and that was covered up. Yeah. Now that we have like this flashback, I don't think Roger and Garp actually were the ones who put Rocks down. Maybe they fought him. You know, I still think they fought him, but as far as the person landing the finishing blow on Rocks, I don't think it's either one of them. I do go back to what Loki said at the beginning of the flashback, because at the beginning of the flashback, Loki said that the world government were the ones who killed Rocks. He didn't say Garp, he didn't say Roger, he said the world government. So I do think something underhanded went down there. Maybe the Gorosei showed up because we do know that Saturn is there and he could just summon everybody. Maybe Imu takes over, or maybe Garling does it. You know, I think that'd be a good way to raise Garling's stocks. Maybe Garling is the one who lands the finishing blow. And now for the last comment. Even though Rocks and Harold were never truly good pals, it's kind of sad to see how their friendship broke apart. Yeah. Especially given the fact that during this whole fight, Rocks is trying to talk sense into Harold. Like, hey, Harold, they're just gonna use you for violence, man. What are you doing? And Harold's like, I mean, this is the only way. Rocks is the only way. Yeah, it sucks. It really does suck. With that being said, though, guys, thank you so much for joining me in this video. I really freaking appreciate it. We could not have this video if not for your guys' comments. So, of course, much love to y'all. And with that being said, a couple of things I do want to shout out. I do have a gaming channel here on the side called Syvduck, Syvduck here on YouTube. I post gaming clips there all the time and just random videos. I also stream under that same username over on Twitch. So make sure to stop by, give a follow, and check out one of my streams. I stream every other night super late. So if you're like, hey, he's never on, it's because I stream at like 2 a.m. I apologize for that. Outside of that, though, I do have an anime reaction channel called Somnus Reacts here on YouTube too, where I mainly react to One Piece, so check that out if you're interested in that. And now that I'm done with the self-plugs, I'm going to bed. It is almost 6 a.m. again. So you guys take care, sleep well, brother, and I'll see you next time. Peace out. Also, I'll drop a comment down here below in the comment section, pinned comment. Drop your one-line predictions for the next chapter, because we will be doing the prediction video pretty damn soon too. But until then, you guys take care.